Welcome to This Is Getting Old, moving towards an age-friendly world. I'm your host, Melissa Batchelor, and today we're going to be talking about 4 tips for caregivers of people living with Alzheimer's disease. And this is part 2 of a 2-part series. So if you missed part 1, you can find it on YouTube or the podcast platform where you probably found this video. I'm joined by Shimoda Emanuel, who shared 4 basic caregiving tips and strategies that she's used before. And now we have 4 more to kind of build on that. So Shimoda, maybe before we get started, in case someone missed part 1, give us a brief reintroduction to you and how you ended up writing Sacred Stitches, The Art of Caregiving.
Yes, thank you for having me again. So I'm Shimoda of Shimoda Accessories, media artist and author, and I make jewelry and fiber art for the soul. And how I got into writing this book is that I take care of my mom, who has Alzheimer's, and my sister. When I was taking care of my mom, my sister was taking care of my mom, but then my sister's memory was declining, and she had gotten breast cancer, which she is a survivor of breast cancer, I'm happy to say. And so I had to take mom, and I am married, so that helps a lot. My husband helps me tremendously. So my mother started living with us, I should say.
So through this journey of taking care of your mom and the additional responsibilities of helping your sister, that might have been overwhelming. So tip number 1 is how to get out of overwhelm. And so what are some strategies you recommend for people who are overwhelmed?
Yes, overwhelm. That's a big one. So some strategies that I use is I would first pick up the phone, talk to somebody. It's like, I'm going through it. Help me. So sometimes I just need to vent. I don't need solutions or anything. Just let me get it out. And my husband will help with that. I said, just let me vent, please. So that helps a lot. If you need to cry, do the ugly cry. Just get it out. You want to release all this emotions. Journal. I journal a lot. So just journal, write. Just write it all out. Make drawings. Just do whatever. Sometimes music, like putting on some rock music and just dancing and just getting it out that way. That's another way of releasing overwhelm.
And actually, music is a good solution because even with Alzheimer's disease, rhythm and music are preserved. And so this is why people can still sing all the words to songs, and getting someone to dance with you is a good way to get them to move from one place to the other without fighting about it.
That's what I do with my mother. She loves music. I love music. So I would play music and I would just be singing to her and she'll be laughing and I'll get her up and we'll do some dancing. So yes, music is very, very important.
Yeah. And play is too.
Yeah.
The next category of your tips is kind of the role of the support team, which you briefly mentioned that's one way to get out of overwhelm. Why is a support team important?
Yeah, because you try to do it on your own. It's so hard to do it by yourself. I have a friend who's going through it also, and she's taking care of her mom. And she's alone in this huge house. I didn't realize this house is huge. Her mother has. It's like 22 rooms. So she's got to keep up with her mother. And she recently sprained her ankle. And it's like, okay, she really got that. I need to ask for help, So asking for help before something like that happens is so, so important. So in my book, I have a sheet where who can you talk to when you're in the emergency room with your loved one and you just need to talk to somebody? Who can you ask to go with you to the doctor's appointment? Because sometimes you're at the doctor's office and you can't remember really everything that the doctor is saying. Who can you just vent? So it's like writing down and making a conscious list of writing down people that you can call and asking them, can I call you when I'm in this type of situation? So they know, ahead of time.
Right. And your family and friends are going to be like your number one go-to because whether or not people know this or not, long-term care is not covered by Medicare. And if you don't qualify for Medicaid and you're not homebound, then you're not going to be able to get in-home services paid for by either of those programs. So then all of these costs are out of pocket. And I was reading something yesterday that the average caregiver spends about $7,200 out of their pocket every year for services. And I know that for my mom, I had to get her set up with a private pay home health agency that could come in just a couple of days a week to help, get my grandmother up and dressed and that type of stuff. And so, but again, my mom and dad are paying for that out of pocket. So
right. It's expensive. And also I was part of a support group through Caring Kind. And so that was really, really great because you're not by yourself. So being this is pre-COVID, so we was able to meet up. And it was so wonderful because I'm not by myself. They're going through the same thing. And then I'm getting tips from them and they're helping me. So we're like having a conversation. So it's not always me and mom, I'm having a conversation with other people who can help. So they have that. You have the Alzheimer's Association and they have a 24-hour support call. You can call them. Caring Kind does also. So it's important.
Right. And that's what I was going to say. Yeah. To be sure that to tap into resources. There are other kind of models that help communities create social connections. So there's the Villages movement. That's kind of it's just a local volunteer network of people that can be developed in any community across the country. But the Villages could be another option. I think there's like 12 in DC. So not every place in the US has one, but you can Google the Village Network and they'll come up. So the Village Movement, the Alzheimer's Association, they often have support groups, and then other local support groups can be helpful. So those are all great tips for how to help people get connected, because you do need help.
You do. It's so important. And sometimes I even forget, I might be angry at something or something's going on. It's like I'm dealing with it myself. It's like, wait a minute, hold up, make that call somebody. Yeah.
Okay, so then our third tip is about getting your affairs in order. So what are some suggestions you have or recommendations you have around this?
Yeah, so before my dad passed away, we got the affairs in order. Thank you very much. It's so important to do that. And my parents had a house. So they put the house in my name, because just in case any of them had to go into a nursing home, that could be taken, the house could be taken away. So I had the house put in my name. We did a power of attorney where I could speak for my mom. And at that time for my dad too, but now it's just my mom. So I could speak for my mother. Actually, I did it for my sister also. And had the will done. When going to the doctors, if your loved one wants it, a DNR, do not resuscitate. That is something to bring to the hospital. Those are the major papers. And it's a lot to do because, like I said, that would trigger overwhelm, saying that I have to get all this done. So I had my cousin, she would help me and I would call her. She'd say, okay, you got to do, let's say, the will. Okay, I'm going to do the will. And I would do such and such. And if I have a question, I call her back. And I said, okay, I did the will. She said, okay, now do this. Now do that.
Well, it's someone that can help you to problem solve and strategize.
Yes.
Yeah. And actually, I have a resource that I'm recommending. A friend of mine named Karen Huddleston has this resource that she developed, or her book is called Mom and Dad, We Need to Talk, but she has this in case of emergency organizer. And it's like this 26-page document that takes you through everything you need to have in place. And the reason you need to have it in place is because even though it's a lot to do up front, it makes your life so much easier on the back end. Because if you don't have the power of attorney, then you can't do anything. And you're going to have to contact a lawyer, probably spend, several thousand more dollars to be able to access their accounts. But there's just a lot, like, where's their light bill, their phone bill, all these different things. So this is a great little resource, and I'll put it on my website for people to check out also. Well, and she recommends doing exactly what you just said that you did with your cousin. You just take one bit at the time. Don't sit down and try to do the whole 26-page document at once, but it will help you make sure that you don't miss anything, because, the things that you mentioned are most important, but then there's so many other things that we don't typically think of, like what's your Netflix password,
Exactly.
All that stuff's going to have to be dealt with in case of an emergency or somebody passes. So
exactly, like the bank. What's your card password, your debit card? Yeah.
Exactly.
And getting your name on their accounts and stuff. So it's very important.
All right. And then our fourth tip is, let's go back to the doctor's appointments. And so what are some things that you learned about the doctor's appointments?
Okay. So doctor's appointments. So with my mom here in New York, she has access to Accessori, which is a company that will have a car service come pick us up. So I would have to schedule that. And I know she takes a long time in terms of getting dressed, eating, getting herself together. So, okay, if the car is picking us up at 1:00, what time do I need to get her up so everything is done? So like, what's the time schedule if that's a concern for you? And it took a lot of time for my mother sometimes to go down the stairs. So I had to take that into account. What do you need? You need her medication. If it's a new doctor, what kind of medication she takes. What else? Since I say she loves to eat, I might be at the doctor for a long, long time. So bring a snack, a magazine, something for her to play with. I don't know, a doll or something like that that would keep her occupied. But you know what? She really liked watching people. So she just get in an environment and just be watching them. So that kept her busy. So I kept like a bag packed of those type of things so I could just grab it and go. And even that's really great for when you have to go to emergency room. Like my mother fell a couple of times. So we was back and forth to emergency room. So I would bring that bag. I would know to carry it with me. So it's already done.
Yeah. And in your book, you talked about having, if getting to the bathroom on time is an issue, to be sure that you have an extra brief, in that bag too. And with the medications, what we recommend is that you put everything into what we call a brown bag approach, but it's basically all of your prescription medications, anything that they take, non-prescription, rise over-the-counter medications, and any supplements. And you can either put that all into a bag, or you can have a list that you keep updated. But definitely doing that. And then the other thing you mentioned was, if you're in a doctor's appointment, and that can be like a stressful time, depending on what happened, but you can ask to record either the visit or what the plan is, so that you can go back and listen to it again, so that you have a way to capture the teaching beyond kind of the after discharge paperwork. So that's another thing. Just use the memo on your smartphone.
Right, because it can be overwhelming. And also I kept a journal, so it was a specific journal for her whenever she went to doctor's appointments. So right. Write everything down. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that was one thing, like my mom, my grandmother goes between her and my uncle's house. And I was like, you need to have a notebook that says like, here's the last, bowel movement she had. Like I would have had like a little notebook that went back and forth, and she goes, yeah, I don't think we're going to do that. So they just do like verbal. So whatever system works, for you, but it's helpful to write it down for yourself. It's also helpful if other people are coming in and helping you with caregiving, to say, if these things, if she goes to the bathroom, if she eats something, drink something, if you could just jot it down for me. It's just a helpful way to communicate in case you forget to ask them before, you get back. And to also explore what respite care services are available in your area. Sometimes that's out of pocket, but sometimes it's not. So
with respite, because before COVID, I haven't been away, and I wanted to have a little vacation. And so I was getting ready to contact this particular facility to find out more information about it. And then COVID hit, and that just shut everything down. It's like, oh my God. So that was heartbreaking.
Right. Yeah. And you're fortunate in the fact that your mom was still able to get up and walk around, and that it sounds like you didn't have people already in there, compared to like my grandmother, if she'd been home during COVID. I mean, it was bad enough that she was in the nursing home during COVID, but I think about all the families whose loved ones required, someone to be coming into the home to help. And then COVID happens, and I'm sure those agencies and organizations put protocols in place to continue to provide that care. But I'm sure it was disruptive also.
Yeah.
So, well, any final words before we tell people how to get in touch with you and how to find Sacred Stitches and to find your other products?
Thank you. I would say when you're feeling a moment, just stop. If you could just stop, and just breathe. That's like the first thing. Just breathe and just be aware of what you're feeling and just sit in it. And ask for help. That's like the main thing.
Yeah.
Even just to talk to somebody. Yeah.
Yep. It's important. No one's meant to carry life on their own, and we're all social beings. And I think if you're a caregiver, sometimes it's easy to become pretty isolated and feel like people have forgotten about you or don't care. But I think that you can pick up the phone, call your local Alzheimer's Association chapter. There are a lot of faith-based organizations out there, even for driving here in the DC metro area. They have a program called NV Rides. And basically it's a volunteer service where if you can be a volunteer driver, and then you have older adult riders that need to go places. But whereas like a taxi service or, probably the service that you use, that's door to door. And what NV Rides does is if you need it, they'll do door through door. So they will go with you to your doctor's appointment, stay, and then drive you back home. And that's another volunteer program that probably doesn't exist everywhere around the United States or other countries, but it's an idea that could really solve a problem for a lot of people.
Most definitely.
So tell us your website and how to get in touch with you.
Is saharlem.com. S for Shimoda, A for accessories. Harlem is where I live. So saharlem.com. You can get my book. You can get my cards. You can get my jewelry, my fiber art. And actually this art here, my mother and I worked on. That's about when she was in her 80s. She's now 96 years old. So saharlem.com. And social media would be Shimoda Accessories, either Instagram or Facebook. All
right. Well, thank you so much for being with us again today. And again, if you didn't hear part one, definitely want to check that part out. But thank you for sharing your experience and your journey with your mom. And I wish both of you health and well-being.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to This is Getting Old, Moving Towards an Age-Friendly World. I'm your host, Melissa Batchelor, and if you'd like to learn more, you can check out my other episodes on my YouTube channel by subscribing and ringing the bell to get immediate notifications when new content comes out. In addition, you can also find the audio version of the podcast on Amazon Music, Spotify, iTunes, and Stitcher. Please feel free to leave an honest review because more reviews mean more awareness of the podcast and helps us move towards an age-friendly world. If you have a comment or a question, you can visit my website, melissabphd.com. Go to the Contact Melissa tab, and you can leave me a voice message. You never know, it might just include your question or your comment in an upcoming episode.